here I thought I was such a bad guy. I was riddled with guilt, and I still am. And yet it's peeling away. I'm starting to realize I'm not such a bad guy after all. I'm actually a good guy. And I had to get it from a former nurse from Norway who's not allowed to practice his nursing skills here in this country, in the United States, because we don't accept their training over there in a foreign country. And it's not just Norway we don't accept. We don't accept just about any foreign country training, prior training and registration as a nurse. You have to go through it all over again here. Why? Because they want to reduce the quality of your service to substandard of what is common sense everywhere else across this planet. Why? Because if you can take a tomato of high quality and pass it off to a gullible public in lesser quality as the expense, the benefit being you can make more tomatoes of lesser quality for the same price and charge the same price as the high quality tomato, single tomato as opposed to the tin, then it's good for the economy, right? We are riddled with hucksters, who are claiming to be our authority figures. And the gullible public does not take logic in college, and they don't understand one of the major fallacies of logic is appeal to authority. And the other two are common sense. Oh, everybody does it. And appeal to emotion. Well, there's something wrong with you if you're not one of us. You're a foreigner. We don't accept you. You've got to start all over again from scratch. And a lot of times, they don't. So this guy is working 7-Eleven. And I had to hear it from him. Oh, you're not interested in money? In getting a job? That's because you live in the now. You must be one of those people who live in the now. And it hit me like a wall. I couldn't believe. Oh my God, you're right. I know that. How come I riddle myself with everyone else's opinion of me that no, I'm a bad person because I'm not normal? Why did I have the good karma to be an extrovert for a change and stop being a shy person, which I never was anyway at birth? I wasn't anything. I didn't have to be shy or introverted. And then I took on a shyness as a matter of choice because I was deeply ashamed that I was surrounded by thieves and liars in my own family, all hustling for an extra dollar. And I was so embarrassed I gave up girlfriends and boyfriends, and that hurt me severely because I did not want them to know the truth of what surrounded me, of who surrounded me. And I became so ashamed that becoming a nudist didn't bother me. An exhibitionist, a nudist at the age of 14 and an exhibitionist at the age of 15 didn't bother me because I was already jaded by so much shame. What more is taking my clothes off going to shame me? Hardly. The size of a flea is the shame of nudity by comparison to the shame I was feeling, surrounded by liars and thieves. And stigmatized, scapegoated, because I don't fit in. I'm not one of them. Oh, I'm schizophrenic. To shut me up. Okay, anyway. So it took a guy, an outsider, to tell me the truth and hit me like a wall so that I could see his point of view. And why did I have the good karma? To be an extrovert for a change and try to seek a larger circle of friends. Because I have so few who actually don't see me as dirt, as shit, but actually appreciate me. I don't have too many. And it's only because of this alcoholic that I'm servicing and trying to help better his self-opinion. I finally got some good karma. And I could hear it from an outsider, somebody who's not affected by, who wasn't born here, but he's sucked up into it, doing a graveyard shift job and working his butt off just like he would have done as a nurse. So he's still fulfilling his mission to overwork, his goal to work himself silly. And, sorry, I gotta laugh. Getting very little sleep and anemic. But a very cool guy, because he hit me with the truth. And it hit me like a wall. Only because I'm helping this alcoholic um, who is in the same situation as me. He was given a massive burden of guilt that does not belong to him. You know, we can call it karma. Okay, he did something in a past life. I must have done something in a past life, but we didn't do anything in this life. And so when something happens to us in childhood, we go, "Huh? What? What did I do to deserve this?" You know, but still, it's a non-truth, regardless of how much our soul, carries the record that we deserve it. But in this lifetime, we certainly don't, because we didn't do anything in this lifetime to deserve it. Still, it's wrong. It's a falsehood. It's an error of judgment. And because we were a vulnerable child, or not a vulnerable, vulnerable, yes, a vulnerable child, we took on the stigmata that somebody else imposed on us that doesn't belong to us. It's not real. It's not true. It's not even accurate. It's not even close. And yet we are surrounded by hucksters and hustlers who are willing to look for a scapegoat. That's how our economy stays afloat. We export our debt. That is, of all the products and services that we manufacture and export, debt is our greatest export and product and service that we produce. And we are so incompetent of carrying our own debt, we would ruin our economy if we tried to. And I did that once, 10 years ago, 12 years ago. I ruined the real estate economy by sending a humongous size bond to Treasury. Followed all the stipulations of Winston Shrout, except for the forgery part. But I did everything else correctly, and it was taken as fact. No one knew it differently. And I know because somebody complained when I withdrew it, because he based his monetary instruments on mine, and said, "What the fuck? Where'd yours go?" Well, somebody found out about the forgery, because you have to make it public record, when you do things correctly, and they found out, and then I had to withdraw it and put out a letter of retraction, and it didn't matter because the damage had already been done, because I sent the debt to the United States Treasury instead of exporting it to a foreign country like China or India. China produces products and India produces services for this country, and we send them money to pay for the interest, not the principal, the interest on the debt that we export to them. They are the largest holders of our debt, because it's impossible for us to service the principal of our debt. It's impossible. So we send it somewhere else. We do a little sleight of hand, a bait and switch. And then we merely pay for the interest. So you can see what's going to happen. Anybody with eyes to see is going to happen that sooner or later the global economy is going to collapse. And foreigners are going to come over and say, "We own you." And this has been predicted for decades. China will invade, and say, "Hey, we claim what's ours. You owe us." I think I'll take your property right over here. You don't have any choice. I'm just going to take it because you owe us. What? And we're all going to be paupers in the street. And everything's going to be turned around, and we're going to be men sahibs. We're going to be saying men sahib to everybody else instead of, the Indians saying men sahib, bakshi, bakshi. We're going to be going bakshi, bakshi to the Indians. Oh, it's going to be a riot. People are going to go nuts. Bakshish, bakshish. Oh, I'm sorry, I have to laugh. I have to laugh. It's so tragically comedic. It's so tragically comedic. You have to laugh. This is why I never pursued I didn't think much of it. But see, when I was running around naked in LA, I wasn't just promoting nudity. I wasn't just promoting the fraudulent business practices of my stepfather, who worked for the clothing industry. I was promoting exercise. And think of all the lazy Americans are overweight, greedy for money. All they watch, the most popular TV show on TV is game shows. Let's make a deal. Family Feud. And it's amusing and entertainment, but why do we have that on TV? Competing for money. Because it's in short supply, because of inflation, because it's worthless. You're competing for something that's worthless? Well, by comparison to 100 years ago, it was 100 times less valuable. I mean, it's become 100 times less valuable in the 100 years, at least 100 times. In the 100 years since the inception of the Federal Reserve. It's like, come on. Why do you want it so badly? Are you lame? Lame? Did I mention we don't teach logic in public school as a required? Oh no, we dare not do that. Oh no. And when I took Western logic in college, I realized I went up to the teacher at the end of the first class day. I said, "Look, teacher, this is what you're teaching us. You're teaching us English grammar. This is what you're teaching us, and you call it logic." And he just stared at me. His mouth dropped open. He couldn't say a word. He did not say a word because it hit me. You are teaching us the rules of English grammar. That's all logic is. How to speak, meaning how to think, and not grammatically screw up your sentences, your sentence structure. That's all you're doing. And yet people don't take logic, and they don't know that three out of the 5 major fallacies of logic are the most popular fallacies in use in our Western civilization. Appeal to emotion, appeal to common sense. Wikipedia does that up their kazoo. And appeal to authority, which Wikipedia also does up their kazoo. And they also do appeal to emotion. They do all 3. And appeal to authority, when our AMA dilutes down the value of nurses by excusing themselves, "Excuse me, you're a registered nurse in Norway or Philippine Islands. You don't get to be a nurse here on the basis of that registration and training. You have to start all over again from scratch and do it our way." Why? Because we need you to reduce the quality of your service so that we can charge a higher price and ensure a greater volume of business, because the quality is so poor, we just know the customer is going to come back for more. He's not going to be satisfied. And he's not going elsewhere. See, a free market economy, you're supposed to be able to have choices and go elsewhere. But you can't. Where is he going to go? Leave the country? Ooh, they got us bad. They reeled us in. Ooh, are they fishing for the big tuna? Oh, they're reeling us in like we're a bunch of fish. They're gobbling us up. Oh, God, this is horrible. So, I created good karma for myself. Not merely because I take gold leaf powder, edible gold leaf powder, but because I gave it to an alcoholic who was severely abused as an infant, severely abused as an infant, and I give him gold. And it's one of the few things he accepts from me, because he doesn't accept a whole lot, except more beer. And please, more beer. And I ration him. He doesn't like that. But I give him the gold, and it almost doesn't matter whether or not he takes it, because he's already taken it once that I know of. And I suspect when he does take it, when he chooses to take it, he has to get drunk to live with himself, because he's facing a fact he's not ready to accept yet, that he's actually a good person. He just grew up under tremendously inhumane, non-human circumstances. It's not inhuman to be so nasty to babies, to abuse them, and toddlers. So he's actually a good person, and he can't face it without getting drunk. And that's his only way to accept the fact that he's a good person, is to get high on drugs or alcohol. Well, that karma came back to me because he's an extrovert. And I went out and sought out a little relief. I need somebody who's a little more positive-minded as a person to interact with. And it turned out to be the graveyard shift retail worker in a 7-Eleven store, because my alcoholic buddy wanted food. Well, he needs to eat. He doesn't think to eat. He starves on. I'm telling you, alcoholics starve themselves on beer. Or alcohol. It's unbelievable. They don't eat food, and it's horrible. So I try to make sure he eats, and so because he doesn't tell me he needs food, I have to think, oh God, you mean I got to ask him every day? Did you eat? I didn't. So that's the only reason why I met this fellow. He's very tall and anemic, but he's very clear and honest. A very good fellow. I had to get it from him, but only because I had the good karma, because what I'm doing for this alcoholic. So I may not be able to help the alcoholic very much. I know I'm helping him a little, but it's like a drop of water in the Sahara. It's really, it appears to me as being so lame what I'm doing, yet it helps myself see myself more clearly with less error. As Charlie Lutz would say, reduce the margin of error. We will never be perfect at whatever we do, but we can at least reduce our margin of error, because when our margin of error is humongous, we carry around a ball and chain tethered to ourselves, which is very leaden in weight and very difficult, makes it very difficult to get around and have any sense of mobility or liberty. Our sense of liberty is hampered by the characteristic of the ball and chain we drag around, because we all do. We all carry around a ball and chain, but wouldn't it be nice if it were made of cotton candy or something, feathery, light, gossamer? That would be pretty cool. It would make life a lot easier to bear. So I take the position, I need all the good karma I can create for myself, because I got a lot of shitty karma. And so I'm service-oriented, so I try to perform service. And that helps me more than it helps the person I'm servicing improve the quality of my service, because I can see right away the karma, objectively, oh, I could make some improvement here. So I learned the value of gold after many years of having the EBGBs not to use it, because even though I knew wealthy people use gold, edible gold, on their confectionaries, treats at parties, so it's got to be okay, but I had the EBGBs, and I waited years and years before I had to read a scientific article that actually alluded to the possibility that gold could cure cancer, when the cancer in question is the result of a psychosomatic condition in which the brain produces too much glutamic acid, or glutamate. And the same situation with ALS. So that got me thinking, if my mother died of karma, what was the karma? Well, it was ALS, but what was the karma? The karma was she was shouldering guilt from her father. Her father was a bitch. Oh God, every day he complained. Nothing was good enough for him. He complained to his wife. He complained to his children. Everybody, and the poor children went away crying. And my mother, the youngest of the brood, stood up for her siblings and said, "Daddy, she was like 4 or 5 years old. Stood up on the chair and said, "Daddy, you're wrong. You should stop criticizing my older brother for being such a poor worker, working, delivering your milk," or whatever it was that his company, I think it was milk, a delivery company. He was a driver working for the company, because one of his workers got sick all the time, drunk or whatever. And so the poor son had to go to work and skip school. And the father would still bawl him out. It wasn't good enough. And the poor kid was destitute with guilt. And as I recall, that one was Norman, Uncle Norman, and he died of a heart attack because he married a woman who was also a bitch, and nothing was good enough, and she worked him to death. He got a heart attack carrying boxes, heavy boxes, an elderly man, just because his bitchy wife kept giving him orders, do this, do that, and she killed him. Oh, he's devoted to her, which is crazy, but because he was insane, because he killed himself to death. He worked himself to death. And so my mother stood up and on behalf, but it didn't help because he still went on doing that, out of habit. So he had this guilty habit pattern. He wasn't good enough, so he worked himself to death. And my mother died of ALS, a psychosomatic condition, because even though she fought that one time with her father, and her father agreed with her, and honey, you should become a lawyer. He didn't agree with her. He just complimented her on her ability to stand up on behalf of her siblings. So he wasn't going to admit to himself being wrong. He just gave her a compliment, saying, hey, look, chick, you got a lot of courage to stand up to me. That's pretty cool. And that's all he did, basically. And that's all you can do with shitty people who are abusive, is get their approval for being courageous. Because they're being courageous, even though they're being stupid in abusing people, but they're being courageous because they're going out on a limb. They're creating so much karma for themselves, and they're looking to see what they can get away with. So my mother died of a psychosomatic-induced illness. How many times we forget that the statistic on psychosomatic-induced causation for illnesses is 80%? How much do we forget that? 80% of illnesses, and it's probably greater. That's a conservative figure. 80% of illnesses are caused by psychosomatic conditions. And ALS and cancer are humongous candidates, because this woman drank her pee to cure herself of uterine cancer that started out in her uterus. They did a hysterectomy, and she still got cancer everywhere else. And she drank her pee, and it stopped, and she realized it was her hormones that were out of balance. She needed hormone therapy, and she did it the only way she knew how, but only in hindsight did she figure that out, that she was giving herself hormone therapy. Otherwise, she would have gone to somebody to treat her hormones, but none of the doctors in the AMA could figure that out. They were stupid. It's like, wow, we don't know what to do. It's metastasizing, and it's going all over your body. You're going to die. We can't help you. Because they have their hands tied behind their back. It's not that because they can't, it's because they won't. Big difference. Remember that? It's a famous expression. It's used once in a while in the movies, but very rare. Is it because you can't, or is it because you won't? you refuse to. It's an important point. So now that I've shouldered you with all this guilt, which you've got leathery skin, it's going to roll right off, and you're going to go back and say, oh, what does he know? And you can go back to your lies and your thievery. If you're the majority of, you probably haven't sat and had the patience to listen to me this long anyway. So if you listen to me this long, at least you probably know the truth, or else you wouldn't have tolerated me yada yada this long. Talking head. Oh, bobbing head, talking head, bobbing for apples. Oh. There's the one good element of the alcoholic is he wants to have a good time. He doesn't want to feel shitty for the rest of his life. He doesn't want to live very long, but besides that, he doesn't want to feel shitty. It's too bad my ex-girlfriend's father didn't stay in LA very long. He probably could have taught me a lot, because he's an alcoholic, but whatever. I had to get it from somebody else, because my ex is not an alcoholic. She has some similar traits, I don't want to get into that, but because my main focus on this video is not the errors of the friends I've had at one time or another who have helped to teach me certain things about human psychology. The focus of this video is the fact that I'm a good person, and I didn't realize it until I did something for somebody else. Because see, gold in homeopathy is considered an an antidepressant. And yet, I never got much results. I got some using a homeopathic remedy of gold. But it wasn't until I actually used gold leaf powder, edible gold leaf powder, and went further than that and started sharing it with other people, not too many, that I actually garnered some good karma to be able to see myself with less error. Now, a long time ago, I used to go to, I used to hang out with meditators so that I could see myself in a better light and not see myself so darkly in shadow. And feel good about myself because I realized I go to a lot of trouble to be a good person. So why should I feel guilty or anything similar? Why should I have such a derogatory opinion of myself when it's not true? I go to a lot of trouble to be a good person. I try very hard because I have a lot of shitty karma to work to counterpoise, which will, nothing I could ever do could counterpoise it, but I try. And so consequently, I have a history, at least in recent memory, of being a good person most of the time. And yet, the bad karma from way, 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 way back is catching up and has reached me in my childhood and given me such a burden of guilt and derogatory self-esteem that I actually started to believe in it and be convinced that I'm a shitty person. And then, where do you suppose paranoid schizophrenia comes from? It comes from being the target of abuse. Hello? You know, schizophrenia is an illness cobbled together from other illnesses. It doesn't exist. It's a lie. It's a fiction lie. The main one is alcoholism, but the other one that's also very main, I forgot about, is being a victim of abuse. So if you're an alcoholic, it might be because you're a victim of abuse, and those are the two intrinsic major factors that go to make up a schizophrenic. Who fails to hear voices. Who does hear voices. And you know what the voices? It's not what they tell him that's important. It's where the voices came from. Oh, they're inside your head. Why are they there? Because people put them there. They're not fictions. People put them there because the person's a victim of abuse. Hello? Hello? Anybody listening? Anybody thinking? The person is a victim of abuse, and they have this reverberation of memory that just sticks to them like flypaper, flies to flypaper. It doesn't go away. Horrible self-image, like a broken record, repeating itself over and over again. Oh, I'm a shitty person. Oh, I'm a shitty person. Oh, I'm a shitty person. Because the person grew up with people acting that way towards them, or telling them, or both. Deep breath. Let it out. Okay? Have we cleared that up now? Everybody got that straight? Look into the eye. Into the nose. Oh, I hope you got that straight. It's really intrinsically vitally important. No, it's not. Go fuck yourself up. What do I care? I've learned a lot from my alcoholic buddy. Oh, yeah. Oh, what the fuck? Which is a more harsher way to say whatever. 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 What was it? The Valley Girl approach? Whatever. What the fuck? A little harsher, but it's the same intrinsic thought. It's pretty much the same. I've been avoiding assisting alcoholics like